All right, 9.5 is on completing the square. And what that means is we are going to turn a bunch of trinomials into perfect square trinomials. And that's what this first question asks is, what could I put in for this last term to make that whole trinomial a perfect square trinomial? So let's use a little common sense here. And I'm actually going to get you to think backwards. If I had this was a perfect square trinomial, that means that if I factored it, I would get x, and I've got to add two things and get a negative, and multiply two things and get a positive, which means they both have to be negative. Now, what in the world, if it's a perfect square trinomial, that means that this is the same as this. What can I add to itself to get 16? And it's 8. So if you put 8 here and 8 here, that's going to give you that middle term. And then if you multiply them together, what's negative 8 times negative 8? It's 64. So you're going to say C equals 64. That's your answer for that one. Now, if you didn't follow what I was saying there, you can also do this with, there's a formula. So if you just wanted to know the formula, all you have to do is half of b and then square it. So right here, b is going to be negative 16. So what's negative 16 divided by 2 and then square it? So it's going to be negative 8 squared, which is the same thing. It's just another way to do it. All right, so this question down here at the bottom, I want you to pause the video and try it on your own and then check back with me and I'll give you the right answer. So it's going to be half of 20 squared, which is going to be 10 squared, which is going to be 100. So C is going to be 100 on that one. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to solve some quadratic equations by using completing the square. So if you want to complete the square, for it tells you to complete the square, what you're going to do is rewrite your equation, but you're going to move your constant term, that positive 16, across the equal sign. That's going to make it negative 16. And I want you to notice I left a spot there before the equal sign, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my C term. Well, your spot that you left right here is for your C term. I'm going to make it where I can factor this, okay? And then I put a spot over here, and that's because I can't change my equation by just adding some random number over here, but I can add that number if I do it to both sides of the equation, because you got to keep them equal. So I've left my spot here and here. So I'm going to find my C by halving this. So negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7, and then square it, so that's 49. Whatever I add to one side, I have to add to the other. Now I know that when I factor this, I'm going to get x minus 7 times x minus 7 equals negative 16 plus 49. Well, that means that x minus 7 squared equals 33. Now, you have to get x by itself. What's happening to x? First, it's being subtracted by 7, and then it's being squared. So the opposite of squaring it would be to take the square root. That gets rid of the squared. Now you've got plus or minus 30, square root of 33. And now get x by itself by adding 7. So I get x equals 7 plus or minus the square root of 33. And I know that that doesn't look like an answer. So and they could give you the answer choice like that. So I want you to be aware that they may stop there. But if you've got your calculator, you can also go ahead and just simplify that to two numbers. So that's going to be 12.74. Or also it could be about 1.26. And that's about equal to. Okay, so got it number 2. I want you to pause the video and try to do it on your own. Watch example 2 again if you need to, and you probably will need to. And then I'll show you the answer, but when you turn this in, you've got to show me your work or you will not get credit for it. Okay, so those are your two answers. If you can't figure out what you did wrong, if you'll take a picture of your work and send it to me on Remind 101, I can definitely help you figure it out. Okay, and now it's going to show you another thing to do by completing the square. You can also find the vertex of your parabola. So if you'll remember, when you graph your parabola, your vertex is going to be your upmost point or your bottommost point. So if you will just complete the square again. So if I'm going to take my constant term and move it to the other side, I get y minus 8. Don't forget to leave your spot for your c, equals x squared plus 6x, then leave your spot for your c. Okay, you're going to complete the square over here. So what's half of 6? And then square it. So it's going to be 6 divided by 2 is 3, and then square it and you get 9. So that's your c, so you're going to add 9, and then you're going to add 9 over here. That leaves you with y plus 1 equals x squared plus 6x plus 9. The whole point in completing the square was so you had a perfect square trinomial, which means you can now factor this to be x plus 3 squared. Okay, and now we're going to put it in what we call vertex form. So if you subtract 1, you're going to be putting it in vertex form, which is going to be x plus 3 squared minus 1. This is vertex form. It's different from standard form, which you've already seen. And you can find the vertex directly from this form. That's why it's called vertex form. And actually, what you're going to do is your vertex is going to be the opposite of this for x, and then this for y. So your vertex is going to be -3, -1. So that's another way to find your vertex. That's not the only way to find your vertex. I showed you in one of the, I think it was 9.2, I showed you a different way to find your vertex. So if you don't like that way, you can always do it the other way. Okay, I'm going to show you one more like that. So, follow my steps really closely. You're going to take your constant term and move it across the equation. So you're going to get y minus 10, leave a spot for your c, equals x squared plus 4x plus, leave a spot for your c. Now you find your c. So you take your b term and half it, and then square it. So half of 4 is 2, and then 2 squared is 4. Oops. So that's going to be y minus 6 equals x plus 2 squared. So what I did is I went ahead and factored that. The whole point in completing the square there was so I could factor it. That now it's a perfect square trinomial, and its factors are x plus 2 and x plus 2. And now put it in vertex form by adding 6. And since you don't have anything to add 6 to over here because that 2 right there is in parentheses, you're just going to stick it on the end. And now it's in vertex form. So your vertex is going to be opposite of that for x and that for y. So your point is going to be -2. 6 is your vertex. Okay, now do B on your own. If you'll pause the video and do it on your own, I'll give you the answer in just a second, but be sure to show your work. Okay, so there's the vertex point for B. If you don't know what you did wrong and you want to send me a picture on Remind 101, I'll be happy to show you what you did wrong. All right, and again, if you have any questions, you can contact me. Remind 101 is the best way to contact me as long as it's not after 7 o'clock. I won't answer you if it's after 7 o'clock. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow.